start, I'm going to switch to English just because,
We are talking English today.
we are talking English today. First, I wanted to say thank you for accepting my invitation to come on my podcast, ReEnvision. I have wanted you to come on one of my platforms since 2021. It's actually really interesting because when I was looking at my, the list of people that I wanted to come on the podcast, like when I created the podcast, I went back to the people that I wanted to have on live and have conversations, and you were there because I think that the work that you're doing is paramount. It's impacting so many women, and it brings so much lightness, awareness, love, compassion to a discussion that is often heavy and sad and for lack of a better word, creates contractions in our body, right?
Wow. So well said. And first of all, I'm touched when you say you've been wanting me to come on your podcast since 2021. That's a long time, and I feel privileged to still be in contact with you. It's been numerous years since we've interact together, and I guess we've been following each other on social media. And yes, what you're saying about this topic is very true. Yes, it can be heavy, but my job also, and I see around that topic, is to bring light to it, understanding, like you say, compassion, depth. And I feel very honored to be here today to talk about this important topic, which is so dear to my heart and part of my own transformation in being able to help other women deal with this, cope with this, embrace this, transform this. So this is it. This is what I do.
This is what you do.
Yeah.
This is what you do. It's interesting because I was preparing the podcast, and because it is a topic that is, this is, okay, I'm just going to make a little parenthesis here. I'm a dog mom, okay? And my beloved old dog that is going to be 14 years old got surgery last week. And I have to keep the door open to make sure that she's okay because my husband is at work. So if you hear Pitty Patty, it's because she just came back and she's settling down. But this is part of what, being a dog mom is. You have to make sure that your pack is well and your pack is can access yourself. Usually I don't do this in podcast episode when I'm recording with people, but we had planned this episode for a little while, and I thought that it was just perfect because life is life, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And I was preparing this podcast episode, and there was like a part of me that was like, okay, am I doing a trigger warning here? Am I coming in with the fact that this topic of motherhood or no motherhood is not only a personal one, it's also a very intimate one. It goes so deep in our understanding of how we work in this world, of who we are, or of what the conditioning that we've been subjected to, of where we are in our journey, what really is the points of pain that we have. And there was another part of me that was like, I don't want to do a trigger warning, because even if this conversation can be looked at being like a landmine field, I really think that the invitation that I wanted our listeners to go and walk into the conversation here is to change that and take a deep breath And if some things come up and some things are actually like shifting within, to bring awareness and to bring curiosity to what is going on. Because by doing this and by listening to each of our stories that are so different, that
Yeah.
are so amazing, that are so indicative of what is possible outside of what we thought things could be, or what we thought that we wanted, or what we wanted,
Yeah.
there is not a landmine field, but a gold minefield. And I think there's going to be a lot of gold nuggets here for women that are listening to us to really embrace part of their hearts, part of their beings, part of their souls that feel that they've been left out, that feel that they don't fit, that feel that they might not even feel normal, that not mean. But this is why I wanted you on the podcast. And this is my non-trigger warning.
And I think it's great because what I get from what you're saying, it feels like your intention is to normalize this. Just there's no trigger warning necessary. It should be normal to talk about this. All this experience of not being a mother, it should be normal to talk about it. And the fact that you decided to invite me on your podcast helps normalizing this. So thank you. Thank you for doing this. And I love the image you chose. You compared it, you said first, it sounds like a landmine.
That might feel, yes.
Yeah, landmine field, but it should be more, and you want it to be more like a gold mine field, which really touches my heart. I think it's a wonderful image. And yes, our lives are worthy. They are, even though society tells us that we're weird, that we're not like we're supposed to be, that we're supposed to be mothers, that we need to be fixed, that we're not broken. We're just particular, different. And this difference needs to be embraced. And this is precisely what is hard to do, especially for women who grieve the fact that they will never be mothers.
I love this. It's interesting because I was talking to my husband last week and I was like, it's weird because I do feel like I'm living an unconventional life, but I feel like it's not unconventional in a sense that I'm just me and I do the choices that ignites me and I try things that feel appealing. And then if I like it, I walk. And if I don't like it, well, I re-choose. And I think that a lot of the times when we're thinking unconventional, we think rebel. We think that we're pushing against something. We think that we're fighting against something. Like we're refusing, like we're rejecting, but embracing something else is not necessarily rejecting the original thing. And
Oh,
being unconventional is not being rebel necessarily. And I think that actually also changes the way that the lens that which we're looking at our lives, the lens that we're looking at our lives through different, lenses, to embrace bigger, to expand bigger, and to see that there's alternative to what we've been told, what we've been shown, what we've learned, what we observed, what our experience has been so far, or the experience of others. So it's interesting to talk about this. So I am so curious. Well, I know your story, but I'm so curious to dive deeper in your story and for you to tell us your story, because some of the listeners don't know you yet. And because I don't think that your situation or your experience is very common.
no, it's not. My childlessness experience is quite common, even though I know women, we experience this grieving process, so grieving the fact they will never be mothers. This is a widespread experience, but it's not talked that much about in the media. But for sure, my experience is a very particular one because, well, let's dig into it together. So at the age of, basically, at the age of 14, I was not experiencing puberty. And me and my mom were very concerned about it. And she decided to bring me to the hospital. And finally, at that point, I got the diagnosis that I was experiencing early menopause at 14. So was not experiencing puberty and was born without eggs, basically. So then this hit me very hard. And I remember this moment vividly. And when I talk about it, it explains the deepness of my solitude that came after the diagnosis, because my mom and I, we got the diagnosis, and then we went in the car and went home, and we just cried the whole way back to our house, and we didn't speak about that. And there was silence on that diagnosis for the next 15 years. So I didn't talk about it with my parents. And I learned afterwards, my parents felt like they didn't want to trigger me, make me more sad. So their way of seeing things was like, it's better not to talk about it. Let's not talk about this. She
This
suffered.
is
Yeah,
that's something that we're most likely gonna go into this, but the way forward is through. And
yeah,
there's so much suffering because we refuse to talk about things. And
exactly.
it's not that talking about things is easy, but talking about things makes us move towards a direction that will move us through whatever is going on. And as parents, I think it's difficult because they're not necessarily equipped. And as children, we're even less equipped to deal with this. Like me, 14 years old, how are you equipped to deal with a news like that?
I was not. I was just, let's suppress this and deal with it when I can. And I've told this story multiple times, but what is striking me right now, talking to you, is that after that period of silence, I decided to connect with women that were experiencing this grieving of being a mother at around the age of 35. I connected with women online, and I was part of a mentorship program for 6 months with American women. And then after that mentorship expired, I just came to the realization that I was going to be alone again with all this after sharing it with women. And then I told myself, no way I'm going to be alone with this. It's not going to make it. So I just felt this great impulse inside of me to, to communicate about this. And what is touching for me is to realize with you this morning that it is precisely with through talking about this over and over and over and over again, that I transformed my experience, that I healed myself, that I connected with other women like me. And this is through the exercise of talking about this that I transformed it. So if I have one message to the women listening to us today, is find a way to talk about this with a friend, with a counselor, with a tribe. It is so important, and it's at the core of your transformation, and you're embracing um this grief that is so massive and triggering and intense, hard to grasp and understand. And then I decided finally in 2012 to create, to launch my blog very modestly. I had never done that before. Like, I just plunged into that creativity, because it's also also a trail of creativity that I took. Like, okay, let's do this. When I started, there was nothing, basically nothing about the childless experience on the web. When I started, I discovered there was another great woman, which is now my friend, Jody Day, that started Gateway Women in England. And then we started at the same time with, because we couldn't find anything online. And then by the creation of Femme sans Enfant, I started to interview women, childless women, because I wanted to have their story heard. Because the core of my work is to normalize this experience. First of all, it's that. And second of all, is to give a voice to these women and to make them seen, heard. So these are the two core, most important things about my work. And the third part right now that I started 2 years ago of my work is to offer support in therapy to women who experience this transformative and very, very profound grief around childlessness. So it's kind of the third part of my journey. And it seems like it's coming to full circle. And yeah, and I have the chills when I say that. Seems like it's coming to full circle, but it is. It is fantastic to feel like everything that I experienced in my heart, everything that I thought about for years, now I'm giving it back to women who need the help that I didn't get when I started.
You're touching on so many things right
Yeah.
now. One of my, I'm listening to you and I'm like, yeah, I have to make notes of this and make notes of this. But the core thing about the healing part, we're social beings. And the core thing about our healing goes through social. It goes through connection.
It
It
is.
goes through reaching out.
Yeah.
So the first part being, I'm starting to talk about this, even if it's painful. And then you're starting to see who resonates with you, to see like, oh, well, I didn't know that you felt like this. I feel like this too. Like, what are you? So as we're talking through this, we're discovering that there's a resonance in other people that may have experiences that are similar or different, that have a situation that is similar, or that they came to like the journey came to a similar result
Yeah.
or similar conclusion. But at the same time, we actually see that within all of this, we are one and multiple.
Yeah.
We're connecting through the love and through this human experience that we have. And we're also discovering that the uniqueness that makes us. I actually love the duality of this. Like, we're unique and we're the same. And when we start to talk about this, then we find each other. And when we find each other, then the work gets faster, not in a way that we want to run fast, but we're stepping into a realm of possibility that gets us through so much resistance so much faster, just because we're like, oh, we're not overthinking things, we're not stuck in our head, we're not like. So by talking about this is actually interesting. And I remember, because we saw each other just before we came to Germany, we moved to Germany.
Yeah.
And you were just finishing that, I think it's a 3-year
Yeah.
training, right?
That's right.
To become, I always have it in French, but a therapist for relationship assistance. And it's a very unique method, and it's a method that I really love. And it's funny because I feel called to talk about this. My mother's cousin is the one that introduced me to you.
Yes.
One day, so I'm child free, which means that I don't have any children by choice.
Mhm.
And I'm not a label person at all. Like, I think that labels are very constrictive,
Yeah.
but I use labels to change the lenses that I was talking about. So, it's like when you're trying new clothes. Does it fit me? Does it not fit me? But it's not defining me. I can take it off whenever I want. But while I'm wearing it, what does it bring into myself? And one day, so I don't define myself as it. And one day, Marie-Hélène, for not to name her, hi Marie-Hélène, if you're listening to us, she sent me their information for you, and you're gonna laugh. It triggered me. I was like, why is she sending me this? Like, to me, it was a label that was feeling restricted because I wasn't seeing myself as being a woman without children. Like, I know that I'm a woman without children, but like it felt very constricted. And I was like, okay, why is this triggering me? It doesn't matter. But at the same time, I think that sometimes we think that labels are restrictive, but they can be very expensive because they help us find each other, right? They help us find the people that are living experiences that are like, it helps us find each other.
Yeah.
And so I started to follow you, and I started to see like what you were doing and the work that you were doing. And obviously, like at the age that I have a lot of friends that are having children, or attempting to have children, or having to grieve with the fact that they won't have children for many reasons. Because the other part in French, the childless, is like by life circumstances. I just love this. By life circumstances. So you don't have children, not because you chose to not have children, but because life circumstances brought the non-children part of it. And so I love the way that you approach things, and I love your story because like you talk about a lot of like what are the reflexes that people have when you say, well, you don't have children, and so I kind of like went into that world thinking, okay, like, is this for me? Is this not for me? Like, what part of like my experience can I expand in this? And what part of my life journey as a woman without children by choice, even if the label didn't fit me, what part of the discussions that women have on the subject resonate with me? Like, so I started to dig into other triggers where, people are asking me, do you have children? No, I don't have children. Why don't you have children? Or all those little things, like, and I think that it's interesting, even to witness this world, this lens, to see where we're not even aware of sometimes the gut punches that we actually take in, that
Yes.
we're not even aware,
Yeah.
and that, or we're aware, but we don't know what to think about it. And I love it how you say heard, seen, validated, and the next step is what? Empowered.
Yeah.
The next step is empowered, because once you're heard, once you feel seen, once you're validated in your experience, and you find people that are actually like living this alternative choice,
Yeah.
or are living this life circumstances that is alternative, then you can feel empowered, and then you can decide for yourself.
Very true what you're saying. And a lot of the work I do with women is about empowerment, because women that come to me with this grief, usually a lot of these women feel less than, feel not like a real woman. So there's a lot of work to be done in nurturing their self-value for themselves, but in society, there's so much work to be done around that. So to empower them and help them to see themselves as valuable, as part of society, as part of a bigger community of people without children. And I get messages from women. I've got messages over the years saying even the name Femme sans enfant, which is the name of my blog, women wrote to me to tell me just the name of your blog is a trigger. It feels like Femme sans quelque chose, women without something. Well, there's no other way to say it. You don't have children. And, sometimes women around that topic told me, well, that doesn't define me, the fact I don't have children. Well, I'm sorry, but it does in a way, maybe not that it defines you, but it changes something in your life. It's gonna make you go experience a different life.
Mm-hmm.
And why not talk about this? It is important to talk about it, and this resistance in saying, I'm normal. I don't need to make a big deal about this. I don't have children. Well, actually, it's a big deal.
Mm.
It makes your life different as a woman. And it needs to be talked about because we all know the life experience of mothers are so talked about everywhere in social media, in movies and songs. So let's try to make it more even and start to talk more about the experience of child-free and childless women so that this group feels empowered because they feel seen, validated, and heard. This this is what my work is about.
It's so true because and see, I'm not the only one that had that trigger. And when I have personally, when I have a trigger, I want to know where it comes from so I can, because the triggers are out, like they're not outside, they're within. The triggers are within. You have control over them, right? And for me to have something outside of me that actually has a pull inside is unacceptable.
Yeah.
So I demine. I find the thread that from that trigger to within, like where does it attach to, so I can liberate it. I can access some freedom. And I've always done this because freedom is one of my best measure of success. Um, because I love that. I love to be free. I love to choose whatever. And when something happens and it contracts inside, I want to know why, and I want to move through it in any way. And this is why I have done so much of work on myself. And that's why when I work with people, that's the lens that I bring to them. It's not about fighting anything. It's about letting go. And the conversation that we have, there's a story that I remember. I was working in insurance, and one of my colleague who I love so much, she has, I wasn't gonna say had, but she has 2 children. And she came on Monday morning to my office, and she said, "What did you do this weekend?" And I don't remember. It's been like 10 years, but so I told her what happened, and then she said to me, "Oh, I remember the life I had before my children. Before I had my children, I could live I'm gonna say egocentric life, but the way that she said it was like really like And then I looked at her and I smiled and I said, "It's interesting that you're saying this to a biologist." And she's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, in my lens, the most egocentric thing that you can do biologically is to have children and to devote your entire life to having children and all the resources to having children. So I'm not saying that one is more worth than the other, but we need to talk about this to change the lens because we exist in society and we're apparently I've seen the statistic, we're nowhere near, going away, right?
Very
So
interesting story. Very interesting lens. And I would, I'm taking control of this interview. I would like to know your story. Are you willing to
I
tell
love
us
this.
what is your story?
I love this. Um, Well, I grew up. My story is I grew up a only child. I don't have brothers and sisters, and well, this is interesting. I love this. I am an only child, and I was not supposed to exist in a sense that I'm an accident. My father thought that the world was just too harsh of a place to have children. And my mother had been on the pill for a long time, and she had a lot of like side effects. And she decided that she wanted to take a break. And people were saying like, "Oh, it's going to take months before the hormones are out of your system, so you might be good." And here I am. So
Wow.
I came into this world in a very different way than most people come into this world, and I was an only child, and like all I think I suffered from the fact that I didn't have siblings and I felt alone, and that's a story for another day, but like I felt very different from the get-go, like as soon as I got into this world, and this is what fuels the work that I do today. And then when I went into teenage years, I love children, by the way. I do love children. I want to make this clear. But I was babysitting. I was making money and I was babysitting, and I always like, my boyfriend at the time like had a big family, like a big, like a big gathering. His family was from the Lac Saint-Jean, so it gives you an idea of like,
Yeah.
and that was an experience that I didn't have. I was like, wow, that's so amazing. Like I want this. And I always wanted to have like, kids. And my mother was always saying like, I can see you having so many kids, like I see you having like a big family.
Yeah.
And then I got married, and we did talk about having kids with my ex-husband. And, we were going to university and everything, but there was something that felt very, I don't know, like it wasn't igniting me. It was more like, so I was asking a lot of questions to people around me that didn't have children. Like, why didn't you have children? Like, what happened? Like, and it wasn't, I'm sorry if sometimes we actually ask questions and it feels like an interrogation, but I have a scientific mind. So it was curiosity. And then I split up with my ex-husband. We got divorced. And when I met my current husband, it was at the beginning of a relationship. My mom was sick, and she wanted to have like grandchildren, like adamantly. And I remember when at towards the end, I even entertained, and this is going to be interesting, I even entertained the idea with my current husband of having kids, one kid, just so she can have the experience of being a grandmother. That's how
Wow.
strong conditioning can be in our mind and in our hearts.
Wow.
And obviously we didn't. And she passed away. And when she passed away, that whole pressure went away with her. We did talk with my husband a lot about having children or not having children. And it never felt like something that was like, for me, having kids, it's a lifestyle, obviously, but it's a life project. And we didn't have that life project. We had so many other projects, like life projects, and that one was not. And then so much that one day we decided that, he was going to go to have a vasectomy because it's easier for them than us, obviously. And we did have a lot of conversations about that. Like, what if, like, do we freeze sperm? Do we not freeze sperm? Like, what happens if we change our mind? We talked about the adoption, like we talked about things. We didn't leave any rocks unturned. Was it easy? No, it wasn't easy. When you're making decisions that are like pretty much definite in essence, you have to talk about things and you have to go through like all the scenarios, the good, the bad, obviously. And when I say good, bad, it's like air quote, because like there's no better scenario than another, just like in our mind that puts boxes. So we did go through all of that, and we decided that we were not freezing any sperm. We decided that if one day we wanted to have a family, we would adopt. And that was that, like that was how we decided that we were gonna solve the, not solve, but
Yes.
like,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
and I feel like my mom was right in the sense that when she saw that I was going to have a lot of a big family, because she said big family, not children, I feel like this is what she was seeing: the big family, the community, the impact that I was going to have on people with my voice.
Yeah.
So that's my
Yeah,
story.
I think the question that you bring, the image of the big family, is very powerful because for childless and child-free women, the concept of family is so different. Meaning that we're not focused on creating a biological family, but more about creating a big circle of people around us that share this life experience. And I will speak for myself, but in that circle, I have women of different ages, older than me, younger than me, friends, neighbors, co-workers, childless women, child-free women. It's just my journey is about creating connections, and not only connection based on the blood relationship. Of course, I'm very close to my parents, and I have one sister, and my sister doesn't have any children. And these relationships are important. But when I grow old, my family will be all the spectrum of the connections I created through this life experience. And it doesn't always have to be about blood. It's part of a bigger spectrum, and this is, I think, what women experiencing grief have to open up to. And I know if it's a big change of mindset, because I was experiencing this. I've always wanted children. I was always good with children. I was a natural. I was sure I would have a family, a blood family. And it's quite hard to accept that when you always dreamt about that, when you saw yourself in your dreams. That's what you wanted to experience, but there's a way to get that family connection. It's just different. And difference in every way, I mean, I think needs to be embraced. Because if you do not embrace it, you just break, because you're resisting to this change, resisting to open to this experience that is not what you planned. It sucks.
It sucks.
It sucks.
It sucks. I
It sucks to
I
be.
love that you're using the embrace change, because yes, there's pain. There's pain that we cannot avoid in our lives. And but that pain becomes many folds suffering when we're resisting. And at some point in our journey, when we have changes, because there are changes that we choose and there are changes that are imposed to us, whether it's, a loss of somebody, whether it's the fact that you cannot have children, whether is you have a disease, diagnosis, there are changes that you cannot, that are imposed on you.
Yeah.
And the reason why I created this podcast was really to talk about this. How do we re-envision after that our lives? How do we, because we have this vision in our lives, like that we're going to have children, that we're going to be pregnant, that we're going to experience like all of that. And one day it's like somebody is taking the rug under our feet and we don't have any leg to stand on. We are completely lost. Like we're drifting away in a sea of endless storm, and we just don't know what to do. So I'd like you to share in your experience and in your the experience of the woman that you work with, whether in the therapy sessions, the coaching that you do, or the women that came through your world with through Femme sans Enfant. Where do we start?
Yeah, that's a big question. Where do we start? Well, it's interesting that your question is very interesting, because usually when women come to me, they have been turning this over and over and over and over and over again in their heads for years, months, weeks. What the hell am I gonna do in this life if I'm not a mother? And I want to say, first of all, I want to salute the courage of the women that decide to stop suffering alone in silence in their heads, and that come and book a therapy session, because this is the first step. Just finding someone, and it could be me, it could be whoever, I have an experience, but I'm not God. There's numerous coaches and therapists. The main thing is, first of all, find someone that you trust and that you can talk to, but try to find someone that you feel is going to get you, that knows about that experience of being childless and child-free from the inside. I think it's life-defining to find that kind of help. And so that is the first thing. Find someone to talk about this. Don't stay alone with this. Then the second step that is most important, I find, and I tell my clients, is find community. There are different communities online, either in French or in English. There's more in English, to be frank, and there's a little less in French, but there are communities on Facebook. Find, or elsewhere, find a community of women like you, childless or child-free, where you can talk freely, openly about that. And it's very important to find a space where you will not be banalized with your feelings, because this is the one thing that women get a lot from the outside. When women open up to their friends, their family, their co-workers, what they get very often is different things. Banalization. People tell them, well, it's not that bad. Well, it's not that life-defining. And also they get the reparation mode. I mean,
The fix
they
it
get
mode.
fix it.
Oh, do we love that fix it mode?
From the inside, outside, we get a lot of people trying to fix us. Either if we're childless or child-free, there must be something wrong about us, or we must have made a bad decision somewhere along the way about our lives, And we should do everything we can to fit in the mode and to be a parent. Well, I'm sorry, but most of the child-free and childless women have thought about this question over and over and over again. And what they need is not to be fixed. What they need is people just to listen. Listen without trying to fix things, without trying to tell them what they need to do. It is their own path. It's hard to be on that path. It's triggering, and they just need people to shut the fuck up and listen. Listen.
You're actually
Listen.
going into already into my next question was, you know, the education part of what you're doing, right? Like with,
Very
so
important.
one part of your work is to have women that are in that to feel what, like you said, heard, uh, seen,
Validated.
validated, and empowered through that. And on the other side, there's the people around these women. Like, how can you? And that's huge, because like for me, my mission in this world is to actually, like, part of my mission is to um reduce the suffering of people, prevent suffering of people, and to dial up the joy, the happiness, the, you know, like this whole like balance between the two. And I think that our work is one with the person that is living this, to help that person feel that they have control and they can actually move through this, but also with the people around them, to not say stupid things, whether it's, you know, with any types of grief, which is the big thing. And I hear what you're saying, because I remember, like, when my mother was sick, or when she passed away, like the sheer amount of stuff that come out of people's mouth is wow. And it's not to be mean, and it's not to be like, this is what we're used to doing, like we're, you know, like we're, but
Yeah.
to be in presence with the person and to listen to that person is the most supportive way to help them. It's the most powerful way to have them unload and start to untangle whatever is going on, and to help them get out of their heads.
Yeah.
And it provides us with another perspective, so we can also expand our horizons.
I think the main thing about people trying to listen and to accompany these women, I think if you're now, I'm talking to you people who are listening, if there's childless or child-free women in your life and you're trying to listen to her, it's gonna take great courage to embrace and respect you and welcome your hopelessness, because this is precisely what is triggered. I think
Mm-hmm.
people want to fix,
So
so
true.
it's hard for them to grasp and to accept the fact that they don't have a clue. They don't know what to do, and they desperately want to help you and take you out of that suffering. But it is precisely the love, the listening, and the courage of the person that is there, and just saying, you know what, it sucks. Oh my God, I wish you didn't have to go through this experience. It must be so hard. I feel you, and I'm there with you. That's it.
Mhm.
That is what is most needed, to be heard, to feel like we're not alone, and that we're not weirdos, or
That we're loved,
that we're
that
loved.
we're loved,
This is what we're
really, that we're loved, no matter what we are, we're loved.
we're not looking to be fixed. We just need to be embraced and not feel alone and just listen to. And if you try to do your best to do that, that is all we need. Yeah.
If there's a way to reframe this for the listeners, I always think about when my fix-it mode gets into gear with somebody, I always take a few seconds to think about, if I fix it, it's because I'm taking charge and
Oh,
I'm empowering myself. And what happens is we're taking the power away from that person.
exactly.
And in our fix-it behavior, we're doing the exact opposite of what we're trying to do here, which is to help that person find their way through and feel heard, supported, validated, and empowered. And if this frame of this framing lens can really sink in and come up every single time you're trying to go into there, I think this episode has done its work.
Yeah, what you're saying is so true. It's so true. And it touches my heart deeply because this is the core of the approach I learned being a therapist for relationship assistance. It's all about empowering the person and not trying to lead them on a path that you think would be good for them. It's about helping them and shedding a light on the triggers and the way they defend themselves from suffering, and helping them to find a way through this and believing in their own potential. This is not about the therapist, it's about the person that just needs a helping hand to find a way through this. So we're like partners in this. We are not leading, we're just lighting the way. This is,
Oh, I love this.
yeah.
I love this. Oh, Catherine, I am so grateful for this conversation. I thank you so much, so much for your generosity, for your light, for your compassion, for your purpose in life. And if you have any parting words for her listeners, I invite you to share them with us.
Never forget, you're not alone in this experience as a child-free or childless woman. You are not alone.
Thank you. I'll leave in the show notes everywhere to find you. You work in French and in English. And you do conferences, you do coaching, you do therapy, you have a blog, you have a YouTube channel, you have so many resources. So if I was lost, I would start there if I were you. Listeners, thank you so much.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for your kind invitation.
I love you. I feel you. I see you. Take care.